Hey, welcome back to the Build a Basement. I'm Kerm, and today we're going to do a short time lapse where I do all the crimping and wiring in that TOOLHEAD head so that, pretty much so you don't fall asleep while you're watching it, because that's kind of what I want to do when I watch it real time. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to mount the beacon to the Vitalii. We're going to mount the Stealthburner to the Vitalii. We're going to check out how rigid that Vitalii mount is with all that stuff on there. And then we're going to be pretty much ready to finalize this printer, put some skirts on it, get the electronics done, and should be pretty awesome. So check out the video. All right, so we're going to wind up going off the beaten path here because with this build we're using the Vitalii mount. So we're not exactly mounting our tool head the same way as you would in a standard Voron build with an X carriage. I'm just adjusting these lead screws a little bit, and I'll be standing today because printer's kind of tall. All right, so I guess to start off with, what I'll say is the bed is taped down because if you didn't catch it before, this bed is a Mandela Roseworks bed, and it is using a kinematics mounting system. So that means that it basically is a floating bed, but it can move only in certain directions a certain amount. But because it does come off the printer with relative ease, I'm taping it down so that it doesn't just fall off the printer. Reason for the kinematics bed is it stops the bed from warping more so than just leaving loose tie-ins to the frame. On top of that, you get the added benefit of easily being able to remove the bed if you ever need to. That coupled with the fact that you have the Wago mounts on the bottom really helps with being able to kind of do easy stuff in terms of with the bed. So this is the Vitalii mount. We talked about this in a few videos ago, a while back. It's an aluminum mount. It's much thinner than the normal X carriage. And we are actually going to be doing a couple different things with that. First things first, before we do much, we're going to talk about the beacon. So this is the beacon probe, and this is pretty popular now. And I really had no interest in the beacon probe, which is this guy right here. That thing right about like that. Until they recently came out with the ability to basically do a touch probe, similar to what you can do with the Voron tap. And what that probing allows you to do is basically use a nozzle, and it looks for differences in flux between basically when metal touches metal, and there's electromagnetic, waves going through it, and it changes, and somehow it does it also with other items, because in the video they're doing it with like an egg and some, I don't know, some ham or something. It's kind of weird, but supposedly it works. I've not seen a lot of videos about it, so hopefully when we get on there and we get it working, we'll do some videos about it. So what I don't know for certain here is which of the standoff mounts to use, because it's not 100% clear to me. So I have 3 different sizes. I have, and I printed these with a little bit of brim because I didn't want to worry about them not completing. Little items like this sometimes can use something. So there's a super small one. There is a slightly larger one. And then finally there is a, what they call, I don't know, large or something. So there's a short one. I don't know how to be able to tell which one to use without first mounting the tool head, but I don't really want to mount the tool head first because we're going to have to get in there to do some stuff. So I could painstakingly, I guess, kind of painstakingly measure exactly what the difference is in terms of the height with my little ruler that's hiding on me. So basically this needs to be within a range of where the tip of the nozzle is in order for it to function properly. And it's just kind of hard to measure in there, It's going to sit something like this. So I'm going to go with the standard medium units for now. And if we have to change them, we have to change them. It's not that big of a deal. I will live with that. So I believe, let's go pick the right ones now. These guys are the ones I'm going to use. So from the bottom up, those now slide on, but there's still enough friction to hold them in place, which is nice. And then we already, because I don't really need that much thread locker, we already have. I'm going to go with what's in there already. Nice and solid. That's one of the big things about the beacon probe is it needs to be really solid to the tool head. And this Vitalii mount being metal really helps facilitate that need. So good times had by all. All right. So that being said, this section here, they're talking about the original X carriage, which is a two-piece black or whatever color you make it, plastic piece that interlocks itself. And then there's a piece in the back that kind of screws to it, but also holds up into an inductive probe. That's very popular when you do it this way. This is kind of the bare bones, old school, original method, if you will. There is a lip on theirs, much like the lip on here, to mount your head to, and then it gets bolted together. If you needed to, for whatever reason, to build that, you can. That would also get replaced. You wouldn't necessarily use this piece if you're doing a tap. This is strictly if you're doing a, you could use something like this with an eddy probe from, is it Big Tree Tech that makes the eddy probe? Who makes the eddy probe? Yeah, I think it's Big Tree Tech. But you could use it for that or, yeah. So, and there's an inductive probe right there. They're showing an Omron TLQ5MC probe or similar. The only problem with inductive probes is they do tend to drift a tiny bit with temperatures. There's also an issue back in the day, like 2 years ago, when the slice engineering mosquito was really popular, that people would actually install that backwards, which is forwards. It's really weird. And it would melt the inductive probe, so kind of got a bad name because of that. They're showing probe position 6 inches above the bottom. It's basically because that probe is, the way that probe works is it can't really tell distances, but what it can do is tell when it gets within a certain range of something. So that's how that works. So here they're showing the Clockwork 2 mounting on the tool head, which is kind of where we're at now. So let's pull apart our tool head a little bit here and kind of separate this stuff out. So our Stealthburner part should come off, and then we can take apart the hot end from the Clockwork and then disconnect and I'm too lazy to go get a screwdriver, so I'm doing this with tweezers. Disconnect our heater and then disconnect our thermistor. Pull that out. Okay. So we're left with our Clockwork with our tool head board in there that we put in. Basically, this is the Nighthawk tool head. I've gone ahead, we're going to be using centralist homing on this, but I've gone ahead and repurposed the X GPIO that's on this board for a filament runout switch right here. It's in a video, but kind of brazed over a little bit, but one of those intricate things that doesn't really need a bunch of talk about, but I'll go over it now. So there's a filament runout here that runs on a micro switch, Inside that micro switch is a little leg that comes out, a 5.5 millimeter ball bearing. So when the filament goes in, it actually is set so right now it's normally closed, and when the filament goes in, it opens up that switch, so it can tell when basically there's filament in there, which is kind of nice. And I gotta undo that. I'm trying to figure out why the filament's not going all the way through, but there we go. See if we pick that up on mic here. Now I would say the it's so minimal, the amount of it's not, some people say they're having trouble with flexibles when it comes to this type of filament runout, but I don't know how. Anything's possible, but let's grab a piece of flexible filament and so I'm holding this a good, I don't know, what is that, 7-8 centimeters away, or 4 inches or so, and this is plenty flexible. There's no bowing or anything like that, and if I got close, I mean, or even from up here, I mean, I might be able to. I guess from all the way up here, it's a little bit rough, but I mean, if there was a bowing tube of any type in there. So I'm not too concerned about it. I don't print out flexible filaments, so there's that too. All right, so we're gonna mount this thing. So we need M3x8. The way this is gonna go on is kind of up high like that. So M3x8s, we're gonna use 2 of them. And again, I'm gonna use a little bit of thread locker on this. And I like to think that the Vitalii actually came with screws. So let me look at that real quick. I got another one right here. I don't know if it came with M3 screws or not, so let's look. So it comes with screws for the holders. And it comes with a couple other screws too. It comes with, what is that? 6 screws. 6 screws. 1, 2. No, I'm going to use my own screws because there's no way it's going to have screws long enough to do the bottom section. So I'm using my screws. All right. So clockwork. First screw to go in. Put a little bit of the magic Smurf paste. And this one is going to be going in right through here. And we're going to make this easier on ourselves here. It's kind of funny, the printer's in my way. So I'm going to preload that into the hole and situate myself. And then tighten that down pretty good. Okay. So that's the first M3x8. And then we have another M3x8 going in. And these are kind of important because this is how everything's going to be stable. This is where you don't want things vibrating out at all. And I might need to do something there. There we go. Another M3x8. Nice and rugged, rigid. Access hole. M3x8 socket head screw axles, 2 of them on there right now. Holding that in. And while we're at it, so I will also make mention, because I've now, you'll see, I've tightened up my belts. I've gone to this point right here. There's not much to it. It's nothing to explain other than the fact that I tightened them up, trimmed them back, and I put in my 2 screws. And what I do, slam it forward, tighten it up once the belts are all tight, and then any adjustments you have to do, and then tighten those additional M5 screws in place. So now we're 100% front and back where we need to be. Somebody argued that you could be askew and still do that, but I disagree, because if you were askew, unless you were kind of in a triangle shape and somehow your parts were moving on the inside to move in and out, there is a very, very micro likelihood that you would have a solid hit in the front and solid hit in the back. That's the way I do it. I've never had a problem. So if you don't think that is true, then do it the way that you want, because it's your printer, you know? It's all good. So we get the bottom of the hot end here, and we have our piece of Bowden tube. Now on this Bowden tube, this is a Bowden tube usually comes in different sizes. So they're all 1.75, but this one actually has a smaller inner diameter. You can also get a bigger outer inner diameter, so that the thing is about 2, whereas you can get others with 3. And the purpose behind it is the fact that you want to keep that channel where your filament's coming down to be relatively center. So you don't want a lot of slop in there. So you want to use a relatively good Bowden tube. This particular brand's Capricorn. Capricorn makes really good Bowden tube. They've been doing it for a long time. So that's what we're using here. And then I'm just going to slide this into place, hopefully. Hopefully. That. And this right now is being held because there's a little lip. It's hard to see, but there's a little lip underneath this. It's the same way if you're using an X carriage or a tap. All of them have kind of a little place for that to happen. The other cool thing about this is the amount of airspace for the air to flow past that cooling point on your cold end of your hot end. That's I'm liking this Vitalii. Liking it a lot. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're actually going to be putting our actual face of our printer on. So this is actually going to tie both parts together. But usually, and it's not showing it here because they probably already put them in when they did the X carriage, but there's some little screws that you put in that have little nubs right in there for the top of your hot end. I'm trying to find where that is here in this M3x12s. Is that what they're using? Crazy. Yeah, they're using M3x12s right here. These 2 screws right here, which are basically just holding points. I'm going to reduce that down to M3x8s, and hopefully that's not too long, because frankly, these don't need to be very long on the setup. I think they were M3x12s on the stock X carriage because they needed to make it to the backside where you had heat inserts. We don't have that here. So Get over there. Thought there was enough room in there. They also don't want these very tight. These are supposed to be kind of hanging out where they are. I like to tighten them up probably. Nope, I can't even use these. M3x8's too long. Okay. That's probably where those additional Vitalii screws come into play. So, let's grab a couple of those. And again, we already got some of the blue stuff on them, but one does and one does not. And we get the proper driver. And yeah, that's gonna be good. We'll get the other one in there. And yeah, so they really tell you not to tighten these up at all, because they're really just kind of additional support, if you will. But I'm going to snug them. Because it makes me feel better. And I'm pretty confident that our parts are going to fit together pretty well here. So now, when you put your face of, and again, this is another video, but this is all built up, neatness counts, all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. Now this connects to the back of the house, front of the house, back of the house, via an 8-pin connector right up here. And this makes it so that everything's easy to kind of pull apart when you need to, but this should basically snap right into place, like so. And everything should line up pretty decently, which surprisingly does. Not surprisingly, but happily does. How about that? And then we're going to need M3x25s, which I can't eyeball, especially the M3x50s. M3x25s. This is an M3x25 right here. All right, so, and I'm sure they came with the kit. I just, as opposed to you guys watching or me doing a ton of editing, let's cut to the chase, right? So these right here are actually going through the plastic and into metal in the back end, but just to be on the safe side, I'm not going to put any thread locker on these. Plus, if you're going to take anything apart, it'd be the front that you take off so you can work on things. So these are going to go straight in from the front like this. And they should line up all the way through the part and all the way into your mount in the back. In this case, the Vitalii. In the other case, the X carriage. And sometimes, and we'll see if it happens today, but sometimes what will happen is, nope, it's not happening today. You'll miss the back screw hole just ever so slightly because your printed plastic part will have a hole that's just slightly varied from where your mounting part is in the back, and it'll push it away. If you see it happening, back it off, do some adjusting, get it where it needs to be. Quick tip here, I just tighten those up by just loosening them back up. And the reason for that is because I like to do these top ones first. When you do the top ones first, it enables you to tighten up this seam that you have up here. Whereas if you do the bottom ones first and you have pressure on the bottom pulling it down, you wind up almost impossible without putting the part under a major amount of stress to close up that gap. So pull it together a good little bit. You don't want it to crack, you don't want anything like that to happen, but and then I come back down here to the bottom, snug those ones up as well. Good. And I can tell you right now, and I'll have to do a little look in and I'll let you know, but it looks like my beacon is, if I had to guess, about 3 millimeters lower or higher than my nozzle, which should be good, I would assume. So there we go. That is our tool head on the printer, which is a very exciting moment. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. We did have to extend these thermistor wires, which is very annoying, E3D, but it is very common. Why is it common? No idea. It shouldn't be. You should be ashamed of yourself. Make those wires an extra 1 centimeter, and we'd be golden. And I'm talking to myself, but it's on video, so it's okay. All right. Where is my driver? I don't know. All right, back into it as we go. Because where there's a will, there's a way. I know a guy named Will, and he likes that expression. So I'm just going to tighten these in. Tightening these in. And those are held in with, they're crimped in with ferrules. I can do a little crimping video eventually if people want. Just go leave some comments. Let me know. And let's see here. Now, go ahead and close this guy up. Like so. And it's a beautiful thing. There's no wiggle jiggle on that at all. Love it. Love it. All right, so next part of the Voron build manual is an XDL 345 mount, which is a new addition. There wasn't XDL or input shaper back in the day, and then there was input shaper, and then it was just an add-on. And to this day, my favorite input shaper was the one that you mount right here on the front of the unit. It actually has screws you put in with spacers. USBs into the printer works fine. This mount and this board that you can do and that you get with a lot of the kits mounts basically on the back side over here. There's 2 holes. I think we talked about it when we were assembling that we're not going to be using that. You can also use the same portion right here if you're doing a 3DO nozzle cam. The breakout board can be mounted there as well. We're not doing either one of those. Input shaper, or I should say the ADXL is actually built into the Nighthawk, so we don't have to do it. And I believe there's also one in the Beacon, if I'm not mistaken. So we're more than covered on that. That'd be interesting if you can do the ADXL from the Beacon and the Nighthawk real time, and then have a comparative between the two to see if there's a difference, or to see if it will take an average of the two. That'd be a good idea. And that is the end of the build manual for the Stealthburner. So let's go through and show you what we did not do. I don't think anybody really builds the Afterburner nowadays, but it's in this one. Newer manual does the Stealthburner as well. But if you are stuck doing an Afterburner, it's pretty much the same process, down to the point where you're just using some different size screws. Your clock works a little bit different. But the mounting and everything else is very similar. You'll recognize what you're doing when you see it comparatively to this. So at this point we have most of the printer built. Take this tape off for now. Just get the bed off there. Put that on the bed. Our next step is going to be basically running our cable chains. And yeah, fun times. Awesome printer.